When creating lessons, it's a great idea to give interactivity to the learner besides just constantly asking them questions. Giving simulations or demonstrating how things work is a great way to help the learning. At the core of that in Teacharium is the variable system. Over here on the left, the top option is my variables panel, and I can add variables here. Each variable has a name and a type, either a string, which would be like text content, or a number, or a boolean, which would be like true or false. The scope determines on how long this variable lives for. Some variables are just for the one step, and some variables go throughout the whole lesson. And then you can give each variable an initial value for what it starts at and an optional description. Now, variables are a place where Teacharium remembers something. So we need a way of setting values to that variable. If we look at our components, the interactive controls section has a whole bunch of these. For instance, I can pull out my star rating, click on it, choose options, and if I select my value variable, now the star rating will be tied to that value. Let's play the lesson and take a quick look. When you are previewing a lesson like this, there's a debug panel up here, and from here you can see the value of your current variables. This one happens to be called value. Right now it's set to 0, and I can see that 0 stars are selected. If I click on, I can see the value went up to 2, and if I click on 5, I can see the value went up to 5. As we saw, there are a whole bunch of interactive controls. So if I pulled out a stepper and put it next to my stars, I could assign that to the same variable. And now, as I change that stepper, I can see that the stars change. And if I change the number of stars, I can see that the counter changes. You can then use those to display values in other areas, like maybe I have a bar chart. And if I edit that, I can say perhaps category A, instead of being 75, is equal to my value. Category B, you might have noticed that the field here is called a numeric expression. I can do more than just pick a variable. I can also type in a mathematical expression here, like value times 2. And then finally for my third one, I'm just going to say this is always 10. So now if we preview it, I can see that category A and category B are currently 0 because my counter and my stars say that. If I go to 2 stars, I can see that category A went to 2, and this one went to 4 because it was times 2. Now I don't have to always use the same variable. I'm going to go over here and click Add Variable, and I'm going to make a second value. I'll make that a number as well, and I'll make it start at 0. So now instead of having the stars and the counter all pointing at the same variable, I'm going to make my counter point to second value. And then down in my chart, I'm going to set those two columns to having different values. And if we preview that, I can see that the counter controls category B and the stars control category A. I have a second step in this lesson. If I go on to that second step, I can see that only value is listed here. And that's because when I created that second value, I set that up as a step level variable instead of a lesson level variable. So if you're ever missing a variable that you think should exist, make sure that it's set up to the right scope. On the second step, I'm going to show off the dial and the progress bar, and I'm going to set both of those to my value variable. So then when we play the lesson, it won't matter what I set this one to, but if I set my first value to 5, and then I go to the next step, I can see that it remembered the value of my variable. And that's how you can have different steps influence later steps in the sequence. If you take a look at the chemistry titration sample lesson, we actually create some custom components that use this functionality to display a little chemistry simulation to the learner.